Right, so where did it all begin for you in terms of your illustrations?
Well, I've been drawing since I was little, like since I was 2 or 3 I started drawing, and I just haven't stopped really. So it's the only thing I'm really good at, I think, or above average. So it's just something I stuck to, and after grade 12, after I finished my schooling, then I didn't actually know what to do with my life. So I just thought, okay, I'd study art. And after that, I just basically began drawing freelance illustration work. And so yeah, it's been pretty much set out from the start, kind of paved out in a way.
And your parents were supportive in the beginning of your journey into art. I know, art can be seen scrutinized in the way that it's in terms of job prospects. I mean, were they quite supportive in the beginning?
Very, yeah. No, I'm very lucky in that sense. No, that they were always very understanding of me wanting to follow this career path, and yeah, completely supportive. My dad is artistic himself. He draws and paints. He's a doctor, but he does that in his free time. So yeah, he really understood kind of the pleasure there is in doing that. So yeah, he just wanted me to follow my dream. So I'm lucky.
So it runs in the family then, the art is in the blood.
Yeah, no, I think so. My mom's a musician, and my brother's, well, my mom is musical. She's a teacher, but yeah, she plays piano, and my brother too. So yeah, there's definitely a kind of artistic, I don't know, temperament maybe in the family.
So you said you had a brother, and is it older brother, younger brother?
I have 2 brothers, both older.
Okay, and do they like to draw as well, or paint, or?
Well, my middle brother, he drew well. Actually, I think better than me, but he chose music. I just think, yeah, that was his calling, for lack of a better word. And my older brother is more into languages. He's a language editor and at the newspaper. So yeah, he's more into the written word, and then music is my middle brother, and then I'm visual stuff. Yeah.
That's quite an impressive family. I can imagine what it must be like Christmases and stuff when you get together and you've got somebody painting, someone drawing, someone music, someone playing the piano or the guitar or singing maybe. It must be a great... So was there quite a lot of competition between you and your brother who does draw when you were growing up? Who could draw better?
No, not really. Yeah. Not at all, actually. We drew together, and that was fun. So yeah, just chill, listen to music and drew our own fantasy worlds. Yeah, we started doing the whole world building thing from a very early age, so there was always that kind of fantasy kind of approach to the drawings. I know many of my friends, because at a early age most of us draw, but my friends, they drew cars and soldiers, and I drew those too, but I always created a world wherein these characters resided, and then I moved to more fantasy and nature inspired stuff from a very early age, which is kind of not weird, but it's not completely the norm. And I just continued with that kind of.
Was this sort of something that clicked within you that made you want to follow that fantasy and the nature? Was this something like to give you an example, with me, I'm fascinated with trees. I love trees, and was there something like that for you where you just saw something that really inspired you and you were like, I just want to draw this?
I don't know if there's a specific moment, a epiphany I had, but I think it's lots of different gradual influences. My father is a very bookish man, so there was always books around when we grew up. Great children's literature and good picture books, high quality children's books, and I think that definitely influenced me. And we often went on vacations to the Drakensberg and did like hikes in nature, so that kind of influenced me as well. So it was, I think, just the way I was raised kind of like developed my style, and yeah, it just happened very naturally.
Yeah, no, it's incredible actually with sort of seeing all of this born out of the way you were raised, you know, like the sort of experiences that you had and what you were surrounded with. One of the people that came to mind the moment I saw your drawing was Maurice Sendak, who did Where the Wild Things Are, which is one of my favourite children's books. Did you have somebody that you looked up to when you, an illustrator when you were growing up? Or someone that sort of really, wow, this guy or girl draws well?
When I was little, I was very actually oblivious of things like specific writers and illustrators. I just kind of read what spoke to me, so I didn't actually consciously think. But like I said, like that Where the Wild Things Are was in our house, and all the great like illustrators. So I was lucky to be exposed to that, and I just kind of took it in. It was actually just later, when I was like a teenager, when I began consciously thinking, okay, well, some specific person did this and he or she did other books, and I then began more like purposefully researching and developing as a specific taste. But when I was young, I just kind of like ate everything and didn't even think about like the process behind it that much.
And now, do you have somebody or people that you sort of really look up to in the art world?
Yeah, well, especially in the illustration world, like now I buy as many children's books as I can and look at them more in a how can I say analytic way. And some of my favorites are definitely Sean Tan. He's an Australian children's book writer and illustrator. He does both. He writes his stories and illustrates them. There's so many. Dave McKean from England, he is fantastic. I like Oliver Jeffers. I think he's from, I'm not sure, America.
Yeah, he's originally from Scotland, but I think he lives in New York now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
My favourite as well. He's incredible.
He is great. And then in South Africa, there's also great people working in the field, especially Piet Grobler. He is a very big figure in our illustration scene, and some of my friends. Most of my friends are more in the fine art world, but just the local art scene is fantastic in Cape Town and rest of the country. So no, there's definitely people I look up to.
Well, since you mentioned Cape Town, why don't you tell us where we are? So this is yeah.
Yeah, well, it's my studio, and it's in a basement. I rent a basement flat that's also my living and working space. I don't many people kind of rent a studio to work at, to get out of their homes, but I kind of like to live and work in the same place, at least now. So yeah, I'm in Tamboerskloof and I live and work here, and it's
Do you
nice.
find? I know I've tried working from home, and I cannot mix the two environments. The work environment for me needs to be different, separate from my home environment. I guess it's probably because I'm not in the same field as you. But do you find that working where you live is challenging in that respect, that it can get a bit too much for your sort of headspace? Or?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. I don't think I would want to work like this indefinitely, but for now it's been working well. But I must say, I'm actually planning on getting a studio next year. I've been doing this basically since I graduated. I've only had a home studio, and that's now for the last 5 years I've been working from home, and I'm beginning to feel a bit it's not like cabin fever as much as I don't think there's enough external influences. So I kind of find my ideas just almost, I don't know, cannibalize themselves. It's just like the same things eating each other, and like new ideas are just like different forms of the same stuff, because I'm kind of not exposed to enough external things, I think. So that's definitely like the con is like, yeah, you kind of get very hermetically sealed inside your own world. But on the other side, like I've been very, very productive the past 5 years because of the very focused environment of just like getting up in the morning and start working with no distractions. So in that sense, it served me well. But I think I've definitely reached the point where I start, like, at least for the next few years, work with people again, and then maybe later in my life become like a complete hermit again and kind of do that.
Well, let's go and have a drink in Tambour's Kloof, and you can show me a bit more.
And get out of the flat.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Dan. All right, so we're just going to take a little walk around and go for a drink. You're going to take me out somewhere. Your favorite spot, I believe?
Yeah, like I've got a few favorite spots, but I like Belize a lot, like for drinks.
Food is good?
Food is good, yeah. Food is good. Like, and yeah, it's a good place to watch people pass by. And
you're a people watcher.
I am, definitely. It's important to kind of see other human life if you're just in your studio like 20 hours a day. So
yeah, no, I know what you mean. When I used to work in London, I used to enjoy just having a coffee and watching people go by, and it's just fascinating to see the stories and stuff. Have any of your drawings come out of that sort of that people watching?
Definitely, but it's like very subtle. It's like subtle. It's kind of, I just see a face that's evocative, or like someone's body shape, and that kind of like starts a story, and then a drawing develops from that. So, but I do find the area very inspiring. You can go down here. Because I'm so close to the mountain, like Lion's Head is like just up the road from me in Kloofnack, and I try to like hike there 2 times a week. When I don't have that much work, I can do that 3 times, and I find I generate my best ideas when walking in nature. So yeah, it's actually ideal for that.
So what other areas of Cape Town do you find quite inspiring?
I love Kalk Bay. Well, that's actually outside Cape Town, but that's like my favorite place. The train line going there, and the harbour is very like almost mystical to me. And then I also love Constantia and those parts, like Constantia Nac. Again, like nature and trees play a big influence on me. So yeah, definitely the more natural areas.
That's the highlight you're working on. And tell me more about that.
Okay, well, when I do like fine art, it's basically just my own stories and illustrations. So, like, if people see it, like, you would still think it's illustration, but I think because it's like my own stories and my own almost philosophy that I try to convey through them, like I see that as my art, if you want to call it that. And like there's no like distinct message or something I want to convey. Like it's not like some form of propaganda I try to put out there. It's just like the way I feel, and like some values I have do come through the pieces, but it's mostly just flights of fancy and world building that I do for my own sake, actually, but people do find connection points with that.
So it's almost like, you know, there is a distinction between I'm going to draw for somebody and I'm going to draw for myself. And you've decided to be the kind of artist that you're going to illustrate and draw and paint for yourself. And are you in a position where somebody does like want you to draw for them and illustrate for them, and you've got to try and do it, and if you are trying to do it, you find isn't there like a clash between what they want and what you want?
Yeah, it does happen because I do client work also. Like it's a balance. We need to pay bills, so I do work on more commercial children's books, and yeah, like it's just a mind shift I need to make, and it's sometimes good to kind of be pushed in directions you wouldn't usually go. But to answer your question, yeah, there's definitely clashes sometimes. But I've never had like a completely negative experience. Sometimes it's kind of nice to get out of my own world and my own head and work with someone else. So yeah, there's good and bad.
Yeah, right. So I guess the question is then, what is your philosophy?
I would say like there are some threads winding their way through my work. Like I don't have a specific like philosophy, but I would say a sense of melancholy. Well, that isn't a philosophy, but it's a feeling. But with that also, like I think caring and empathy is definitely something I try to do in my own life, or like a mindset I try to cultivate. And the characters and stories that pop up in my art definitely are meant to kind of elicit a sense of, how can I say, pathos or sensitivity in people. So I would say there's a philosophy of caregiving maybe, and perhaps contemplation, like less about like action and aggression and like certainty. Like I'm almost against certainty. I think like people should harbor some doubts and definitely not like be too certain that the way they see the world is the right way. So that's kind of hopefully what my art conveys.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There can't be such an emphasis on certainty, because without that sort of element of doubt, there's no growth.
Definitely, yeah, and like many of the stories and characters I depict are people in transit, like nomads and travelers and people seeking stuff. And yeah, I think it's a straightforward metaphor for that concept of not being like certain. But I think it works, and it's kind of a natural inclination to me to kind of depict that side of life, the nomadic side.
Yeah, and I mean, people are drawn to that in stories, in movies, in books. People, in art, people are drawn to that because there is always that sense of longing to experience, to have new experiences. And definitely, I agree, you can only achieve that traveling. I mean, have you travelled much?
Not that much. I started traveling this year for the first time, really on an international like scale. I did a art residency in France, and that was amazing. So it's kind of ironic. I'm a very domestic person myself, because you need to be to make the work. So my travels are more in the imagination, and yeah, maybe the fascination I have with nomads and displaced people, or because I am not that way myself. But I have been consciously trying to get out of my shell, and I want to start traveling like much more. So yeah, definitely going to do more residencies next year, maybe going to Finland, going to France again. So yeah, definitely want to incorporate that into my work and the way I live.
So, what appealed to you about the initiative?
I try to donate works each year for a few causes. So yeah, it's just a way I feel that I'm giving back to the community, because being a freelance artist is quite a isolated work. So yeah, I just enjoy feeling that I make a direct impact in people's lives. So yeah, that's basically the main reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't thank you enough for what you've done, and you know, we're looking forward to March and the auction. Of course, you're invited.
Thanks.
And thank you very much again for your incredible donations.
Only a pleasure.
Thank